Welcome to our 22nd class of Most Important Current Affairs series. There is some party going on around, so you might hear some noises or maybe some songs. Please ignore that and bear with me. These topics came in April month and all of them belong to polity current affairs. But see, topics are many, but topics are not complex. Many in number, but small topics. Let us see how many we can do today. Some topics will be left, we will do it tomorrow. First topic is Jammu and Kashmir domicile rules. Now the Jammu and Kashmir is made a union territory with legislature, and also your Article 370 of the Indian Constitution, that effect is nullified. So for that now we have new domicile rules also for the Jammu Kashmir. And in tribal areas, scheduled areas, you have provision of tribal teachers. Okay, tribal teachers, and many of them are recruited under quota because this is a tribal area, so teachers are also supposed to be tribal only, but there can be no 100% quota for tribal teachers in scheduled areas also. This is by the court, so we will see what is that. Article 164(4) of the Indian Constitution, we will see what is that. Online justice delivery in the era of COVID-19 pandemic, court has said that now we also need to deliver court judgments online through video conferencing and everything. So that is the topic. These 4 topics at least we will do, and if time permits we will go further. So first topic is Jammu and Kashmir domicile rules have been changed, and we will not go into the detail of how Article 370 was removed or what changes had come by Jammu and Kashmir Special Reorganization Act. We will just look upon the domicile rule. So center redefines Jammu and Kashmir domicile rules because now the Article 370 is removed. So many of the provisions had been removed. So in that one provision was that Jammu and Kashmir government used to decide who will get the domicile, who will work there, and it was not open to the outsiders. There were many provisions in which one was that Jammu and Kashmir domicile is open only to the residents of the Jammu and Kashmir, the people of the Jammu and Kashmir. But this was in a way problem because it prohibited outsiders from settling in Jammu and Kashmir, and at the same time it also prohibited businesses and industries coming into Jammu and Kashmir, buying the land. That was also not allowed. So now this order has come through Jammu and Kashmir Civil Services Decentralization and Recruitment Act. Now jobs of various categories are open to the people from outside. Outside means people outside Jammu and Kashmir, not outside your country. Okay, and in fact some people say that we should not say outside only because Jammu and Kashmir now has got the equal status as other states. In other states, job, employment, buying land, marriage, everything is open. Okay, so Jammu and Kashmir also has the same value. So it's just equalization now. Previously it was not equal, now equalization. Who will issue the domicile certificate? Why am I giving you this information? Because domicile certificate issuing is done by various authority in various governments. For Jammu and Kashmir, it will be Tehsildar who will be empowered, and most of the states are using Tehsildar only to issue the domicile certificate. Also, if the government wants, in any time they can notify that okay, apart from Tehsildar, this specific officer will be responsible to issue the certificate. So that is up to the government, but currently domicile certificate will be issued by Tehsildar. Every state has a different criteria of giving domicile. For example, Jharkhand, we have very harsh criteria because Jharkhand is a tribal state mostly. 25% population is tribal. So in Jharkhand, the governments have introduced like 30 years before you should have the land record and everything. You should have passed the 10th examination. Your father or parent, father or mother, anyone should have been working in government employment in Jharkhand. The domicile criteria in Jharkhand are very specific, very harsh, very severe. Okay, so many people living in Jharkhand do not get the domicile certificate because the government has set very, very rigid rules. So in Jammu and Kashmir, what is the domicile criteria? See, this is not coming in UPSC prelims, so I just have it included in the slides. You can pause the slide, read the criteria, and then forget it. Okay, for the knowledge you read it. Otherwise, we will be uploading the slide anyway in some time. Yeah, I know many people are waiting for the slides. We need to collate them and everything, consolidate them. So it will take a few days only, 3 to 4 days. We will be uploading it for you. Don't worry. So you can, in that slide, you can read this criteria. This is just factual information. This is not coming in prelims, but just for the knowledge, you should know that. Now, second topic is very important. No 100% quota for tribal teachers in scheduled areas also. First of all, tell me in the comment section which schedule of the Indian Constitution has this tribal area scheduled area provision. This question came to the Supreme Court Constitution Bench. Constitution Bench is made for interpretation of the Constitution, special benches. Okay, this question came to the Supreme Court that in tribal areas or scheduled areas, the reservation of tribal teachers in schools located in scheduled areas around the country. There are many scheduled areas, scheduled states. So in those areas, is it justified to give 100% reservation to the tribal teachers in the schools? Supreme Court said that no, this is not justified. What was the issue? The issue came from a legal challenge to a January 10, 2000 order issued by the erstwhile, because in 2014 Andhra Pradesh was divided into Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, right? So before that only there was a case pending in the Supreme Court, okay, and an order was issued by the erstwhile that time Andhra Pradesh government, United Andhra Pradesh government in 2000, and that order said that in tribal areas the scheduled tribal candidates will be provided 100% reservation, and in that 100%, 33% shall be women. So no general candidate, no OBC, nothing. Tribal teachers will get 100% reservation, and in that 33% will go to tribal women. Okay, for the post of teachers located in scheduled areas of the state only. Scheduled areas only, okay, not Hyderabad or other, I mean those areas which are not scheduled tribal areas. In your state, in scheduled areas, entire state is not a scheduled area. Some districts are chosen. So this order came in 2000, and now against that order someone came in the Supreme Court. So the question was pending, it went to the Constitution Bench, and Constitution Bench said that no, this is null and void, 100% reservation is not possible. So what is the argument Supreme Court gave against this order? Supreme Court says that 100% reservation is not possible because in 1992 only we have told you that in Indira Sawhney case, we have told you that upper limit or outer limit for the reservation is 50%. Now you are giving 100%, so that is not justified. Now a question arises, then how come EWS quota and 60% thing? See, first of all, that question is already pending before the Supreme Court. The discussions are going on, the legal case is up, so we will see what will happen. But EWS some provision says that this is for the socio-economic condition. This is for the socio-economic condition, not only the social condition. And the tribal and your Dalit quota or SC/ST quota is for social condition only. The socio-economic condition again comes for the OBC, EWS also, but for the tribals and SC, the reservation criteria is social and historical backwardness. So these cases can differ, but let us see what the Supreme Court decision in EWS also. But here the Supreme Court said that no, because Indira Sawhney case we said that only 50% quota is allowed. So how can you give 100% reservation? The citizens have equal rights and total exclusion of others by creating an opportunity for one class is not contemplated by the Constitution. It said that if you give quota to tribals 100% and if you replicate this in entire country, suppose all the states start doing that, that will lead to absolute inequality. General candidate will not get a job even. At least you give some percent like 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. But making the other people job zero is not justified. It also deprives, see, SCs and OBCs of their due representation. You are giving just to the tribals. Are not SCs also backward? Are not OBCs also backward? So they are not getting a one seat, no one employment. The opportunity of public employment cannot be denied unjustly by the incumbents, and it is not the prerogative of few. Okay, it says that opportunity of public employment cannot be denied unjustly to the incumbents. That means previously someone was having opportunity, okay, but now you do not give them opportunity, so that is incumbent. Okay, previously something was happening and now you are not providing them. And also it is job is not prerogative of few only. Okay, this is not limited to few only, everyone should get the opportunity. Court also discussed that if you give this type of reservation, then rights of the people will be affected. What kind of rights? First of all, equality of opportunity. In your constitution, in the fundamental right, we have equality of opportunity. Can you tell me the article name for the equality of opportunity? C. And also in 51A, we have this. Now you must be very clear about the article 14, equality before law, and your equality of opportunity in fundamental rights. But you might be getting confused, what is this pursuit of choice under article 51A? Article 51A is your fundamental duty. Fundamental duty is to develop India, protect India, respect Indian symbols, national symbols, freedom fighters, and everything, and also develop scientific temper in the country. Also, the last one, 51AG, said what? I will show you it says what. You will be very clear. To strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity so that nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavors and achievement. Now suppose you are giving reservation to tribal teachers only for the upliftment of the tribal society. Is not that a compromise on the fundamental duty of the other people who also wanted to develop the tribal areas by becoming a teacher, by doing some contribution? So that thing, pursuit of choice under Article 51A, is also compromised. So this is unjust and arbitrary. It is arbitrary and violative of provisions of Article 14. For example, equality before law. You are not getting the opportunity. 15.1, discrimination against citizens. You are discriminating. SC and ST discrimination and other people discrimination also. And equality. So, okay, they already wrote this. Article 16, equality of opportunity of the Constitution. Everything is compromised. Also, it also impinges upon the rights of open category because only STs will be able to fill all the vacant posts. So SCs, OBCs and general category, everyone's right will be compromised. So these are some reasons given by the Supreme Court. Our next topic is very interesting. Article 164(4) of the Indian Constitution. Why this is in news? This news came in April. Okay, now things have changed. The news discusses the Maharashtra CM Uddhav Thackeray's case because it was supposed that time that he might be losing his seat if he was not elected to the legislative council of the state. So the updated information is that he is already elected. Okay, first of all, I want to tell you the story behind it, the political story actually, then you will understand it. You know that before becoming chief minister or even after becoming chief minister of Maharashtra, Uddhav Thackeray hadn't actually fought any election. His son Aditya Thackeray had for the legislative assembly, but Uddhav Thackeray hadn't fought any election, so he was made the CM. Now your constitution says that you can become the CM, but you have to get elected to the house within 6 months. But due to COVID pandemic, elections were not being conducted. So either he can get through legislative assembly or get through legislative council also, because in Maharashtra you have legislative council also. But for legislative assembly, somebody has to resign and then the by-election would have been conducted. So that would have taken even more time. So they thought that, okay, fine, legislative councils can be done, elections can be done because there were 9 seats vacant. So they decided that they forwarded to the governor, by the cabinet of the Maharashtra government forwarded to the governor a recommendation that, see, there are 9 seats vacant, so now we want to conduct the election in legislative council. And they thought that Uddhav Thackeray will come through one of the seats. But although governor is supposed to work on the advice of the council, so or cabinet you can say. So the governor had to conduct the election because the advice was coming from the cabinet. But governor ignored this because he has so many discretion, and they forwarded the request again to him. 2 times it happened. Finally, Uddhav Thackeray writes a letter to Narendra Modi and requests him that please let us conduct the election so that I can get elected to the house. Then the governor wrote to the election commission that, okay, fine, conduct the election. So election commission said that because COVID pandemic is there and we have got only 9 different nominations for the 9 seats, so no other nomination came, so no election was conducted. Member of legislative council election is indirect election, right? Only few people participate. So direct and indirect mix of it. Graduates also participate, teacher also participate, legislative assembly members also participate. So legislative members, when participating, that becomes indirect. Graduate teachers and graduates of the state participate, then it becomes direct. So mix of direct and indirect. You can see the provision later. So finally, only 9 seats and 9 nomination. Uddhav Thackeray's seat only 1 nomination, only Uddhav Thackeray. So that's how Uddhav Thackeray was finally elected to the house, member of legislative council, and he continued as chief minister. This was the story. So what is Article 164? This is the article where it is written that a non-legislator can also occupy a post in the council of minister or become chief minister, but only for the period of 6 months. Before the expiration of the period of 6 months, he has to get elected to the house. So it was discussing, that time article was discussing what were the alternatives to Uddhav Thackeray. We need to understand those alternatives also. Now, no more relevant. He was already elected, but we will understand something. See, alternative was that Article 170 of the 71 of the Constitution says that governor can nominate eminent persons from field of literature, science, art, and I also told you about the presidential nomination in the Rajya Sabha. But those four fields are different from here. You see the cooperative movement, it was not present in Rajya Sabha nomination criteria. So literature, science, art, cooperative movement also, and social service, these were the fields you can get through nomination. But Uddhav Thackeray does not directly belong to any of these fields. He is not from science or art or cooperative movement or social service. He is doing the political service. So governor said that no, we cannot nominate you. So he was just stuck in between. But yes, social service has a wider scope. That is how Sachin Tendulkar also came in Rajya Sabha, social service. Your recent judge Ranjan Gogoi also came in the Rajya Sabha through social service criteria. But only if the governor nominates, right? Governor was not doing this, so that was the problem. But this was one alternative. Not being used, he became through election member of Legislative Council. And also one more thing, if governor nominates one person like this, his decision cannot be challenged in any court, at least as of the president right now. Till now we have convention that governor's nomination or presidential nomination is not challenged in any court. Our next topic is conceptual topic. In the wake of coronavirus pandemic, Supreme Court has passed direction. Supreme Court has said to all courts across the country, whether it is district court or high court, that please use extensively the video conferencing for judicial proceedings, maintain social distance and everything, conduct the meetings, conduct the proceedings virtually, and deliver your justice and everything. Supreme Court exercises plenary power under Article 142 to direct all high courts to frame a mechanism for use of technology during the pandemic. Article 142 was used. This is a plenary power. What is that? Plenary power here means very wide, right? See Article 142 of the Indian Constitution. Enforcement of decrees and orders of Supreme Court, and unless as to discovery etc., the Supreme Court in the exercise of its jurisdiction may pass such decrees or make such order as necessary for doing complete justice. For justice delivery, complete justice, Supreme Court can pass any order. This is a very wide power, very plenary power. So that article is being used here, and all the high courts are directed that please upgrade yourself and deliver justice online as much as possible. So that is how all the high courts are instructed. And this Article 142 can be used in context of any cause or matter pending before the Supreme Court, and any decree or passed or order so made shall be enforceable. See, throughout the territory of India. That is why plenary Supreme Court power. So that Article 142 Supreme Court has used, and the Supreme Court said that Supreme Court exercises plenary power under Article 142 to direct all high courts to frame a mechanism for use of technology during the pandemic, that you update your technology, upgrade your technology, and you yourself also get upgraded and deliver the justice online. So now comes the question, so what is that delivery justice online? Obviously virtual courts. Virtual court is a concept and aimed at eliminating the presence of litigants or lawyers in the court and adjudication of the cases online. That is virtual court, very important and very normal definition. You can use this in mains also. An e-court or electronic court means a location in which a matter of law are adjudicated upon in the presence of qualified judges and which has well developed technical infrastructure. So here the Supreme Court judges will be sitting, maintaining social distance obviously, and here the litigants will be online and the advocates will be online, and everyone will be interacting in this well developed technical infrastructure virtually. So that is virtual court or e-court. E-courts are different from the computerized courts which have been in place since 1990s. Computerized court is different, okay? That is different. And e-courts are different. E-courts are having the discussion and the proceedings of the court online. The computerized court are not the data and everything will be put on this computerized court, that see this case is pending before this bench and the case status and everything. That is computerized court. E-court is having the discussion and litigation and everything online. Arguments online, okay? In computerized court, you do not have the arguments online. This will lead to citizen-centric services. Citizen also sitting at the home can get the justice delivered, okay? And it will also improve the court processes. Everything will be also, it will lead to reduction of pendency of cases, because online meeting, the delay by the judges and delay by the advocates, delay by the parties, those things can be avoided. So legal process will become easy and more user friendly if e-court comes. That online case status checking can also be included here. So a very good service to the citizens. And litigants can file the complaint electronically. That is a huge benefit through e-filing. They do not need to go to the notary and everything, prepare a huge document, pay the court fees. Those court fees or fines will be paid online only. So no corruption issues also. Or you can say the commission advocates and notary takes from you for filing the case. Those things will be reduced. Also in our courts there is a culture of huge number of pages and huge number of printing, so all these things will be reduced. So understand the benefits of it. So what are the advantages? Easy access to justice, affordable price at courts to all sections of the society. It will be used by every section of the society equally, and this is a very much more personalized and private justice delivery. E-court is very much personalized and private. You can be sitting at your home, your family will be watching, okay, our brother or sister is filing a case, they can give some inputs. And your public speech based system was very much theatrics oriented. The proliferation of e-courts will make litigants faster. Yes, litigation will become fast, and logistics should be provided. Okay, if you do not have the computer, you do not have the Wi-Fi and everything, then the litigation will not be very fast. Then the process can be fast in the physical form only, that you go to the court, it takes you 1 hour or 2 hours. And if your online justice delivery and filing of the case only takes 5 hours, then what is the benefit? So logistics should be provided. That is why the Supreme Court has said to the High Court that please upgrade yourself, and has used which article? Article 142. That article is simply called sometimes complete justice article. This will lead to also transparency and cost efficiency. And if everything is happening online, then the data will be stored online. So anytime Supreme Court wants to revisit its orders, revisit its decisions, so that will be very flexible retrieval of a stored information. You know, the Supreme Court and High Court can look upon their previously given decisions as a proof. Okay, fine. In this case, we had given this decision, so that can be used as law reference. So those references will be very easy because the data is online now. But is that everything so ideal? No, there are some challenges also. First of all, this can lead to complexities. Many people will not understand the e-filing process. They will go to cyber cafe, and the cyber cafe people will take commission. Just for example, they take commission for the examination, application form and everything. E-courts will also prove to be cost intensive as setting up that architecture of the e-courts required and everything logistics. Newest technology, that upgradation will be very cost intensive. For one time it will be very capital intensive. Also there are threats of hacking and cyber security. There may be other infrastructure problem also. For example, electricity problem in a district, maybe there is no electricity for 10 days. It can happen 5 or 2 days, very common in India. Internet connectivity is not very deep penetrated in Indian taluks and villages. So those are physical infrastructure problems. Let us see some other topic related to this e-court project. E-courts project, this was conceptualized on the basis of National Policy and Action Plan for Implementation of Information and Communication Technology (ICT) in the Indian Judiciary 2005. A big plan and policy came in the Indian Judiciary about the e-courts, and the e-court concept project was a part of it, or the basis was National Policy for Action Plan for Implementation of ICT. You can just understand that government came with a policy and action plan that we will implement ICT for a speedy justice delivery, for transparent justice delivery in Indian Judiciary 2005. In that e-court project was also there as a concept, and this policy proposal actually came from the Supreme Court. Supreme Court made a e-committee, and that e-committee came with ICT in Indian Judiciary and e-courts project. This is a mission mode project. Mission mode means you have a fixed timeline that in this year we will lead to this situation. In this year we will have created this many infrastructure. So mission mode project, and also it is a pan-India project. All through the India this will be implemented and monitored and funded by the Department of Justice, Ministry of Law. So that is how the government is involved. Monitoring and funding of this project will be Ministry of Law and Justice. And which department? Department of Justice. Can you tell me the other departments of Ministry of Law and Justice? Can you please? For the district court across the country, it was the project. Okay, the project was for the district court. Objective of the project was the efficient and time-bound citizen-centric service delivery, or e-court projects litigant charter, where people will know that if we file this type of case, this should take, for example, 15 days. So for every delay after 15 days, they can show the litigants charter to the court and say that, see, you are not keeping the promise of your charter. For example, citizen charter is for the government officials and the public. That way only litigants charter. To develop, install and implement decision support system in code. Very easy. Automate the process. No human interface, or you can say the reduction of human interface. So everything will become automatic. So that will provide transparency and accessibility to the information to its stakeholders. The stakeholders are who? The advocates, the judges, the citizens who are litigants. So those are the stakeholders. They will get transparency and accessibility of the information because the process is automated, become automatic. Only this much for this lecture. Domicile rule is done. 100% quota for tribal teachers. Supreme Court has spoken against it. That is done. Article 164 of the Indian Constitution, we have understood that how one can remain 6 months CM or MLA and how they can get elected if they want to. Online justice delivery, a big project is done. These 4 topics are done. In next lecture, we will see these 3 topics. Okay. Thank you for today.